All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Wealth of Health Show. I apologize for last week as we seem to have had some audio problems, technical difficulties. But we are back this week and we are coming back to the COVID thing again. Go figure. But this week we're going to kind of keep it short this week. This week we're going to be discussing whether or not COVID is targeting people, as some of the rumors have stated recently, and also the current state of vaccinations. Should you get one? Shouldn't you get one? Pros and cons. Are they safe, etc. So I do want to add that this show is strictly for educational purposes, and we are not promoting any treatment of disease, and I will be getting a more formal intro on here shortly. But just wanted to throw that out there. So without further ado, let me bring on Dr. Lynn, and we'll get this show on the roll. Hello, Dr. Lynn.
Good. Hey, Brian, how are you today?
I'm great, man. How are you?
You ready to roll?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So as I kind of opened up with the start of this show, I said we'd talk about, whether or not this virus is targeting people. Some of the new statistics that, well, I say new, but it's been floating around for a while, but it's been surfacing more lately. Let's put it that way then. But some of the, quote, new statistics is that COVID is, whether it was engineered or whether it's a legitimate bug that just kind of came out of nowhere, in either case, it seems to be targeting certain populaces. Now, among these populaces, we've heard of elders, and we've heard of certain cultures across the world have been hit harder than others. And amongst this same topic, we've also heard a lot about how our children are affected. So, with that topic, would you like to elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, I mean, the news that came out this morning, I thought was rather telling. And let me just preface this by saying, for my entire career, which is closing in on 40 years, I've never been a huge proponent of vaccines. Okay? I have lectured on vaccines. I've lectured to the American Autism Society. I've been an advocate out there saying, I understand about measles, mumps, rubella, and all the other vaccines, but they do need to be spaced out. I've said that over and over again, that we've over-vaccinated our children. Now, the subject came up this week about kids, and, that it's going to have a formal approval of the COVID vaccine down to age 6 months. And it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up again, because is that a population from 6 months to age 12 that needs to be vaccinated? These are the kids that are in school, and we've heard all these things. And here in Florida this morning, big controversy, mask mandates, no, yes. What do we do with our kids? We've put our kids into a bubble, and I think it's absolutely hideous what we did last year. When we made kids stay home, they've lost a year of their life and the social interactions that were needed for these kids to mature. I think it was just hideous. Now, here's the summary statement. You can say, and you can be a pro-vaccine, an anti-vaccine. You can be one that says, I should never send my kids to a live school. But the summary statement that came out this morning that said, since the end of 19, all the way through and including this week, a little over 400 children have died of COVID. And put that into perspective, that in that same time frame, over 4,000 died in auto accidents, 10 times more. Is that a population that we need to target? And if you look at those 400 plus children that have died, sad, that's 400 too many. I understand that. But virtually 90% of them had a predisposing factor, either serious asthma or a predisposing health condition that predisposed them to having difficulties. And so we can look at this thing in the big perspective and say, do we going to vaccinate the world? Is that the solution here? And I guess I've changed my tune over the last couple years. For those that have said this isn't safe, I don't like to be shot, I don't want it, it's the mark of the beast, you can say all of the above. But as far as, and I'm not going to say that to predispose anyone to say, yes, you need to go get vaccinated if you haven't, but you really need to pray about this thing. You really got to look at the statistical data. And I'm here today to say that the overall summary statement of this vaccine, Pfizer, Johnson, I don't care which one, the overall safety factor, considering we've now put out, I don't know how many, 400 million shots have gone out, and the side effect profile is extremely small. Extremely small. So I have to, at this juncture as a medical practitioner, say, overall, I feel it's safe. Overall, I feel it is safe. And I have to look at this thing and say, the biggest problem that I've seen, and maybe you can say this is controversial or not, is the way it's being sold to us. The way that Biden administration has just jammed it down our throats and threatened us. And threatened all of those. And this is now blown over into what's going on in California to say, you know, every kid will be vaccinated or he won't even be able to go to school. Fear mongering like that, I think, is hideous. And I'm throwing that one strictly on Joe Biden. I'm sorry, I don't want to be controversial on that, but, you know, I think the biggest problem we've had with people wanting to accept vaccines is the fact of fear mongering that's taken place. So
I've heard that over 70,000 healthcare workers, our frontline workers, have quit because of that as well. I guess you've heard that too. Yeah,
ridiculous. You know, give people an opportunity. If you're a frontline worker, I mean, you really had to look inside of your heart and understand that you are going to be an exposed person. You know, and you know, here's the other amazing statistic.
True,
is that
what ticked them off was being forced to. It wasn't that they didn't see the importance. It's that it's literally take it or you lose your job. I mean, that's a bit extreme. I think I get the realism and I get the danger, but that's taking it too far. I think that's just my 2 cents.
You know, and I agree. But you know, when you look at the statistical data that through all of the craziness of 2020 and the hospitals full and beds and all of these different things, and these people work in 18-hour shifts and all these different things and masks and guides and all these different things. The statistical data has shown that those that were working on the front line during the first outbreak through all of 2020, very, 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 very few of them contracted COVID. They're out there facing this every day. They were exposed to it every day. Very few of them got it. So there was something. And again, I don't want to get into the controversy of masks and social distancing and all the above. But obviously, something there worked. Now,
well, on that note, real quick.
Go ahead.
We kind of you actually covered my second question, which was going to be about the vaccines and the safety of it. But that right there, you just kind of touched on a good good follow up to my initial question, which was, do we think that COVID is targeting people, or is it just kind of hitting people the way a normal virus would? So, since a lot of the frontline workers were able to be around it without any kind of vaccination, is that a clue, or is that hinting towards the possibility of this possibly targeting certain types of people more than others, maybe? Same reason why our kids...
Yes, and I think that's a great question, because it did target the obese. It did target the obese. And I guess I have to make a general statement. Trust me on this one, this is a tough one. Could most frontline workers, most nurses, doctors, etc., be more health conscious than others? I'm hoping that that's true. I don't believe it a lot of times. You know, my interaction with a lot of doctors is they just, you know, whatever. But could it be? Now, you see obese doctors, you do. You see obese nurses, you do. But overall, those that stayed fairly healthy, even though they were working 18-hour shifts, had a pretty significant defense up against this thing. Now, it has changed when the Delta variant came out, because now that one's getting easier to contract. So you're seeing more frontline workers at this late date now saying, I worked in the emergency room when it was overflowing, and then this thing came around and I came down with COVID. So I do think obesity had a big role. We have done numerous research pieces on the fact that when you carry excessive body weight, it suppresses your immune system, that the fat cells actually interfere with your immune system support, and you are at a higher risk. So I think the word to the wise is, if you're carrying a lot of extra weight, you need to chat with us, and we need to get you on a program to start making a change in your body now. God wants you to be healthy. God built you to move, not sit at a desk.
Homeostasis is a good thing.
It is. Now, let me just bring up another point. Another thing that came out in the news yesterday is, and I the number of pieces in the YouTube videos that I've done on COVID started in November of 19, when I got a call from a cohort of mine in Germany that isolated the first early cases of COVID. Germany, not the United States, not China, Germany. And the intriguing thing that came out yesterday was the report that came out of Germany about the first 6 months of the COVID outbreak from January through June of 2020. That Germany almost had a complete resolve of COVID without a single vaccine, without a single shutdown, without a single mask. Now you're going to say, well, how in the heck did they do it?
Oh, do tell. Yes, the public needs to know.
The prime minister there talked to the people and said, here's what you got to do. Don't go hugging somebody that's coughing. Stay away. Social distance, but we're not going to shut down businesses. Practice wise distancing. They didn't mandate masks. They didn't mandate vaccines. And in that 6-month period at the peak of COVID, they almost had a complete resolve in the country of Germany. So
hygiene was part of that too, wasn't it? That's what I remember reading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Germans did it right. And, you can say all you want about mask mandates with kids. Don't think kids under the age of 12 need them at all. At all. They are not carriers at all. That mask, I think, is causing more complications than it does help at all. But I think, it's tough to keep that group socially distancing. But I don't think, you look at the statistical data, they're not coming down with COVID. They're not coming down with the Delta variant. They're still got a level of protection. And I can do an entire show about why I believe those under the age of 12 have a higher level of protection than us guys over the age of 60. I understand that. So the idea here is protect yourself, use common sense. If you're overweight, let's start you on a program to get you where you need to. Support your immune system. We have a protocol that we put up using buffered vitamin C. Buffered vitamin C, not ascorbic acid, not the vitamin C you're buying in Walgreens. No. Buffered forms of vitamin C, N-acetylcysteine. How important those two things in a good standardized ultra probiotic, how that can make a support vehicle for you to even with the COVID thing now going into the Delta variant. So I think the next point, Brian, I think that we want to cover before we come to the end of this discussion today is why are those that are vaccinated still coming down with COVID?
Right. Something else, too, that I'd like you to touch on. I know you brought this up before, and I have, too. I compared mask microns, which is the way they measure the filter size, to water filters and things I've done in the past with wilderness survival and various things of that nature, how viruses still get through water filters. And on that same token, I think a week or two ago when we did a show, you talked about an article where they did a test out west against masks and smoke. And
Exactly.
yeah, I think it'd be good to bring that back up too, just to kind of reiterate that.
If whatever mask you're wearing, the study that came out from California or Utah, I believe, was that anybody that was wearing a mask that could still smell the smoke from the fires, because the molecular size of the smoke was actually bigger than the virus itself. So if that got through the mask and you could smell the smoke with that mask on, that virus is coming straight through that mask. And the same thing could be said. If you're not near a fire, thank God, go into the bathroom and spray some perfume. Put your mask on. Do you smell it? Do you smell the perfume? Because if you do, it's coming through that mask. And that's a much bigger molecular weight than this virus actually is. So again, practicing common sense. Wash your hands. That's common sense. Stay away from anybody that's coughing or sneezing. That's common sense. Now, the other thing that we got going on right now, Brian, that you and I have seen up close and personal, is that the seasonal flu is now rearing its head.
Yeah,
so understand, don't mix apples and oranges here. COVID is a completely different pathway than the seasonal flu, but we've already seen cases of seasonal flu now coming into the area, and Fayetteville and Peachtree City and southern Atlanta has been hit pretty heavy already with seasonal flu. Now, I'm not going to sit here and push seasonal flu shot. They're running commercials on TV already. You must protect yourself. Common sense, buffered vitamin C, N-acetylcysteine. When you do feel like you're coming down on something, start dosing 20, 25 milligrams of zinc. Some very common sense things that can take place. But let me answer that question. Why are people that have been vaccinated still coming down with COVID? Well, the problem is this virus is smart. And the reason that it will probably be around, and it has been, coronaviruses have been around since the dawn of time and will be around much longer than any of us.
For those of you that don't know, there's about, I don't remember the exact count, Lynn might remember, but I want to say between 10 and 12 different coronaviruses out there. The COVID-19 is just one of those 12, so there are many others out there.
Exactly. And, the vaccine, the original mRNA vaccines, including the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, forced the body to make an antibody, a specific antibody, that went to the ACE receptors in our body, which happen to be in the lungs. So the vaccine did about an 80 to 90% effectiveness of protecting your body, because 80 to 90% of the original alpha COVID-19 entered the human body through the lungs. Did a pretty good job of protection. So everybody that went out and said, I'm vaccinated, I'm good, I'm cool, this Delta variant went back into an animal somewhere, morphed itself, changed one of the protein structures, and came out, and now it said, you know what? I can change my structure so that I can now come in through your sinus passages. And those that were vaccinated, if they didn't do something else, some good common sense, take your supplements properly, this thing could still enter in through your sinuses. Now, you weren't deathly ill. The vaccine still protected you from being hospitalized and protected you from having a complete meltdown. But, you got ill for a little bit, 7 to 10 days. You had a sinus infection kind of thing, and then it left. But you can still protect yourself. And I'm just going to give a thumbs up to the nasal spray that we're using colloidal silver, specific Argentum 23. Colloidal silver is a nasal spray. Can protect, I got to watch how I say this, your sinus passages.
Right.
Works wonders. It's a specific antiviral, antibacterial. It's been only form of colloidal silver that is FDA approved, can be done in a nasal spray, and can help as a level of protection if you're on the front line or if you're going to be exposed. I think using that on a daily basis can really help to protect you as well.
I'd like to add something real quick here at the end of this too, is that for those of you who are curious about the mask thing, and some of the stuff we've talked about before, go up and look online and look up virus sizes versus the micron size of the average mask. And the only reason I bring this up too, I know the common debate or common discussion here is that the germs collect in saliva or they collect in clumps, and the mask is what stops these clumps from getting through. I mean, without getting into the really, really, really deep science of this, if that were true, or entirely true, let me say then the viruses that exist in water and have existed in water prior to this whole corona thing wouldn't have been able to get through because they would have bound to the water in a nutshell, because that's pretty much what the argument is it's binding to the moisture, it's binding to the spit molecules, for lack of better terms. So it would bind to the water molecules and wouldn't be able to get through the water filters. No, that's actually very wrong, because we've had troubles with people getting giardiasis and cryptosporidium. That's more of a bacteria, but they're getting various types of viruses, including cold virus for that matter, through the water supply in the wild. So, and those filters, by the way, are usually rated down to around 0.1 microns, somewhere in that range. All right. Now, to put this in perspective, most viruses, including flu, including cold, including corona, including basically anything that has the word virus attached to it, at the biggest molecule size is going to be like 0.2 or 0.3. That's the absolute biggest. Most of them are more along the lines of like 0.02 or 0.03, like 10 times smaller than that micron size. All right. So, if we're having issues with it getting through the water filters and have for the last 20 or 30 years, then clearly an airborne an airborne virus with a protein shell around it that's designed to keep it alive and keep it alive in the air is going to be able to get through the mask. And another thing to keep in mind too, those masks are not airtight. It's not like literally like a gas mask, a canister mask, a military style mask where your face is sealed completely away from the air. It will help slow things down. I do believe that. I think it'll do that. But it's a catch-22. At the same time, because there's air that can pass behind the mask, once you get germs behind there, it also makes it harder for them to get back out. So that's my reasoning for not liking them, is that even though I understand the logic and the science behind why they say it makes it harder to get through, the opposite is also true, where once germs get in there, you're now trapping them in there and making it harder for them to get out, including other germs that might get in there, flu being one of them. So I just wanted to kind of make that, bring that to everyone's attention for my part.
And the problem is when you're masking up kindergarten kids, first graders, second graders, third graders, and you're forcing them to wear a mask all day at school, how many times during the course of the day do you think they're touching that mask? Their hands are all over it. And they're coughing and sneezing inside of there. In fact, my grandson ended up with a secondary staph infection. Okay? And how? According to his pediatrician, related to mask wearing. So again, a big deal. Got to be very cognizant of this fact. So I'm not a fan there. I don't think that population needs it at all. I think my takeaway message for anybody out there that has any predisposing health conditions, you're a cancer survivor, you've had any immune suppression, you're overweight, you have diabetes, you have hypertension, you better seriously pray about this, do your investigations, and if you haven't been vaccinated, I think you got to weigh that heavily and get a level of protection. If you're not going to get vaccinated, you doggone well had better follow the advice that we're saying. Get the supplements. Get them in you. Give them to your family. The vitamin D, the buffered vitamin C, the N-acetylcysteine, the probiotic, those specific forms to protect you and your family. And by the way, the number to call our office, want more information on any of this, 678-228-8900. Our website, the THE Nutrition Shop, SHOPPE.net. Full scores of information there. Hey, Brian, before we get to the end here, because I think we're going to wrap this up, can you just review with our listeners where all through Spreaker they can pick up this show and share it with others, as well as how you have the website now set up to listen to past shows.
Yeah, so little by little, we're getting more and more platforms added, and currently, this show, I believe, I know it has Apple Podcasts. In fact, actually, give me just a minute. I'll be able to tell you exactly what we have on this one. Let's see. For this show, and we do have two shows. This is the show that Lynn and I do, and then Lynn has one he does himself called Your Daily Dose, which can also be found on Spreaker. But this show specifically has Apple Podcasts, of course, Spreaker itself, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Castbox, for those of you who are familiar with that one, and also Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. And some of these are available in other countries as well. So quite a few on that. And then we also have some, I think the only one that's missing on your show right now, Lynn, is I think it's Google Podcasts. I think the rest are available. But we're waiting for iHeartRadio to authorize this one and your show, as well as Amazon. We're still waiting on those. Those take a little while to kick in. So those are the last two we're waiting on. As far as the website goes, you can actually go directly to our website, which Lynn gave you. It's also in our description, our episode description, thenutritionshop.net. And if you go to talk shows on the website, you can actually listen live. I have both channels, the Wealth of Health Show and Your Daily Dose, embedded on the website. So if you can't find Spreaker, you're having troubles trying to get your podcast downloaded, you can just go to the website and browse any of our previous episode, or even listen live like right now. And also, if you do happen to get onto Spreaker, feel free to leave us a chat. Come in and talk to us, ask us a question about the show or about the topic, and if you ask us your question while we're talking, then we will try to get to your answer as best we can, or your question as best we can during the show. And I think that's pretty much it. The only other thing I can think of I do want to mention is that for a while I had the entire web store protected behind password, because we have a professional grade or pharmaceutical grade company that we sell online as well, and that is due to various regulations requires us to put that behind a password. Well, I have the store split now where the general store is open to the public and the pharmaceutical store is by itself hidden behind the password protection. So for those of you out there that want to order through our web store, we're getting a lot of new features on there, including subscribe and save features similar to Amazon. And now you can go on there, sign up as a guest, and check out as a guest without having to, store your information on there if you don't want to. So
excellent. And we're wide open for any discussions you want us to address here on Wednesday shows. I think next week, Brian, what I want to do is just talk some of the basics of weight loss. I mean, that's a subject that could go for 12 hours.
Right.
But I think we want to talk just about some of the ABCs of weight loss. So I think that'll be a good topic for next week.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for this show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in or listening in this case. Look forward to having you next week. All right. Have a great day. God bless, and goodbye.